On this episode of Insight, game-changing weight loss drugs are going to be harder to get. So what next?
It's a silly knee-jerk reaction by politicians.
The doctor told me that if I did not do something about my weight, that he doesn't see me living another 10 years. Hence why I tried Ozempic.
This drug was developed as a diabetes drug.
I had a friend that had to lose 10 kilos for her daughter's wedding. She wasn't diabetic.
We don't fix fat phobia by telling everyone you must be more thin.
My weight was just ridiculous, and I've tried every diet possible.
Ozempic is still officially in shortage with no end to that in sight.
If you've got something good, people want it.
That's it, rock.
It's easier to do like that. I have gone back to pottery after 25 years. I'm just getting a feel. It's been a long time.
It's like riding a bike, Dom. Riding a bike.
It took me a long time to go back to it because you need to be comfortable to sit at that wheel on the little rickety stool. There was so much of it that I didn't want to do in front of other people. I didn't want people to look at me while I was moving, while I was bending over. I was really uncomfortable with that, and so I stopped. People don't look at me the same way as they used to when I was in a larger body. Not at all. Losing such a lot of weight has changed everything. Going to the doctors these days is completely different to what it used to be. Suddenly, all of the things are not caused by being fat. My ingrown toenail doesn't require me to lose 10 kilos before someone will look at it. That's the difference. Things are taken seriously rather than being a side effect of being fat. I firmly believe, having lived on both sides of that fence, that being overweight, being fat, is seen as a character flaw, as a lack of strength of character, that you are lazy. You won't just close your mouth, you won't just stop eating, you won't just do more exercise. It isn't that simple. Ozempic has been a game changer for me.
Karen, you take the drug semaglutide for weight loss. It's more commonly known by its brand name Ozempic. How much weight have you lost?
Over 80 kilos.
Had you tried other weight loss measures before?
Yes, 2 types of surgery. I had a band originally, so a gastric band. That was hard. I didn't really lose any weight. And then many years later, I had it removed because I had really terrible gallstones. I then had a gastric bypass. That was the toughest thing I think I've ever been through. The most difficult thing, apart from the physical aspects of the surgery, was having your ability to eat restricted and then have like unpleasant physical side effects when you do eat. But the unrelenting drive to seek food and eat it doesn't stop. It was torture. And it's like a narrative. It's a constant thought process of anything becomes like an offshoot of it. Oh, it's time to pick up the kids from school. Oh, I could probably go to Macca's on the way. Wake up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, but I could have a biscuit at 3 a.m. And it's the first thing that I think of. Even though my body's waking me up to go to the loo, my brain is saying, but we could have a biscuit. And neither surgery curbed that inner noise.
What about the injectable weight loss drugs? Did that curb that noise?
Instantly.
Amanda, you're using an injectable for weight loss. Why did you want to try it?
My weight was out of control. Like, we eat green, we eat healthy. I have 2 teenage sons. We're active, and my weight was just ridiculous. And I've tried every diet possible. And so for me, I didn't want all the weight-associated diseases. My entire family is obese. I knew what was coming. I hadn't yet hit menopause. I'm like, my whole family, as soon as they hit menopause, they all get the same body shape, like morbidly obese. And I was like, I know it's around the corner. I'm not willing to allow that to happen.
Are you open to telling friends how you've lost the weight?
Yeah, so a lot of my friends have seen, I'm very open, and a lot of my friends have seen me and they're like, so what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm a drug user. And they're like, no, seriously, what are you using? So we have a good laugh about it because we're just super open. You gotta be, like, there's no way are you losing this kind of weight without doing something.
Have you lost weight?
I have, I'm now over 30 kilos that I've lost.
In under a year?
Yeah, about 9 months.
Shauna, you've been on and off semaglutide 3 times over the past few years.
Yes.
What was it like for you?
At first, it was a positive experience. I was taking it for weight loss and I lost about approximately 21 kilos in about 10 or 11 months prior to having knee surgery. And I was sick the entire time. I was nauseous. I was also constipated. If I wasn't constipated, I had diarrhea. And the nausea was just relentless. And it wasn't a fun way to be, but it certainly curbed my appetite. It was, I think, more of a desire to fit in or something. I don't know, just that relentless, endless thing of having to, you know, be thin, be thin, be thin, be thin, be thin.
You went off the drug for the knee surgery. Did you go back on it again or did the weight come back?
I did go back on it after a couple of months and I decided that I didn't want to stay on it because of the side effects. But then I started putting weight on and I put on about 8 kilos of the 20 that I had lost. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back on it. And I decided that financially it's expensive and I'm on a fixed income these days. But I must say that being on that drug did change the way that I don't eat the same as I did prior to being on semaglutide.
Ozempic was originally developed to treat diabetes and is one of at least 4 injectable drugs also being prescribed in Australia for weight loss.
Tirzepatide is the active ingredient in Mounjaro. Saxenda contains liraglutide and semaglutide is the active ingredient in both Ozempic and Wegovy. The drug semaglutide targets areas in the body, including the brain, pancreas and digestive system. It reduces appetite in the brain and slows down how quickly the stomach empties. It also stimulates insulin secretion from the pancreas and suppresses glucagon secretion. This means that semaglutide helps to regulate blood glucose levels, which is important for people with type 2 diabetes. Because of semaglutide's influence on appetite and digestion, it can lead to significant weight loss. Because of the weight loss benefits, non-diabetics have been accessing semaglutide via off-label prescriptions, which is driving shortages.
Dibs, you have a big social media profile. How did you grow it?
I slowly grew my social media just by filming me, my husband and my daughter. And just over the last couple of years, it just kept growing. Since being on social media, I've probably put on about 40 kilos.
Has your online success had an impact on your lifestyle?
Yeah, it has a lot. I get told every single day how much weight I'm putting on and I'm looking more and more like an elephant, and just comments like that just got to me over time.
12 weeks ago, you started documenting your weight loss progress on semaglutide.
I don't know why people hide that they're on Ozempic. Since I started documenting my Ozempic journey, I've had so many people comment saying, thank you so much for admitting that you are on it. And I honestly didn't realise that there's so many people that hide it. Ozempic update, week 12. I have lost 10 kilos, but I really cannot notice it. I've had no McDonald's and chicken nuggets are like my favourite things to eat. I'm a very big believer in you do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel better. I'm not there yet. I'm still a whale, but I'm getting there, babes. I'm getting there.
Is this the first time you've tried to lose weight?
No. So in my late 20s, I've tried every diet under the sun. I've tried keto. Keto worked really, really well. I lost 50 kilos on that. I was originally at my biggest, about 175 kilos. That worked for a while, but then as I was getting invited to more and more events, it was very hard to say no to all the free food and, you know, drinks that were always around. And I went off for keto, and that's when I put 40 kilos back on.
What did your doctor say to you after you put on that weight?
I had a lot of health issues. So I had the left-hand side of my heart was enlarged. I had high blood pressure, I had high cholesterol. And the doctor told me that if I did not do something about my weight, that he doesn't see me living another 10 years.
Wow. What did your doctor suggest?
Ozempic.
How did you feel about that suggestion?
At first I was a little bit worried. So I went home and I Googled, and then I saw that it can cause some pancreas issues. So I got really worried. So I went back and I spoke to my doctor more about it. And I spent like weeks just reading up on Google everything I could possibly find. And the main reason I started documenting it was I found that a lot of people on social media who was using Ozempic were hiding the fact that they were actually on it. And there was nowhere that you could find, just the everyday person and get weekly updates on how it's going.
How easy was it for you to get it?
The large pens are very hard to find. The smaller pens I can find pretty easy. The large pens, I probably have to ring like 50 chemists sometimes to see where I can drive to.
Karen, how did you feel about bringing up your weight with your GP?
I wanted to mention about the IVF. Like that's for me, I look back, and that's the biggest one that I regret. When I went to see, we tried to have a baby, nothing happened, get referred to a specialist, go in, sit down, and literally before the "what brings you here today" conversation, she said to me, "You need to go away and lose 15 kilos before I will even treat you." And it took me 10 years to recover from that.
I can't imagine what that would have felt like hearing that. Like, how do you even react to that when you're in that room?
You can't hide it. So everyone can see what you look like. And people are not shy about sharing their views or making comments. And I think when a professional that you're seeking assistance from says, "Well, I'm not going to help you unless you lose weight," I mean, I don't know what you could say. I mean, these days, that would be completely different. And 10 years ago, it would be. But back then, I went away and it took me 10 years to summon up the courage to go back.
So did your GP prescribe you semaglutide?
Not my regular GP, no.
So where did you end up going?
To a clinic that specialises in, I believe the term that's used is medical weight loss.
When you went to the centre that was set up for medical sort of weight loss, how did you feel in that place? How did they treat you?
I needed their service. I qualified by virtue of my weight as well as, the other screening things that happen. And then I didn't have to justify it. I didn't have to beg. I didn't have to have the lecture. Taking the easy way out. Have you tried 101 other things? A lot of the bias and the judgment was removed.
Dibs, have you also faced judgment for using the drug for weight loss?
A lot of judgment online. The biggest thing I keep getting told is that we're stealing the medication from diabetics. And it comes in by like hundreds of comments every TikTok.
Emma Jane, you're a type 2 diabetic and have been taking semaglutide for 3 years. Have you been finding it hard to access?
Yes, yeah, very hard. I've had the same pharmacist for 12 years and he put me on a priority list to stock it. And even then, there was 2 lots of 3 months that I couldn't get it. So it's pretty scary. And you feel, I can't explain how you feel, just pretty bad.
How do you feel about the increasing use of the medicine for weight loss?
It's really challenging for me because I was 117 kilos. I'm now 60. But I felt people using it for weight loss, if you were in the obesity level, I'm not talking overweight, I'm talking obesity, I can understand why you would use it. However, if you just had, I had a friend that had to lose 10 kilos for her daughter's wedding and she went on it. She wasn't diabetic. And I think that is really it's not logical thinking.
Gunnar, you found out at 23 that you have type 1 diabetes. What does that mean for you day to day?
It's hard. It's very hard. I constantly feel like a burden. I don't want to feel like a burden to my wife. I don't want to feel like a burden to the people around me. It is really hard, and day to day, it takes a lot of time changing sensors, changing infusion sets, testing my blood sugar constantly. It is draining. I'm not here to complain, but sometimes chronic illnesses, you don't see everything. I smile a lot. I let people know I'm doing okay, but it's tough inside.
You were prescribed semaglutide. How does the drug help you?
For the first time, my blood sugars are not bouncing all over the place. I don't have to worry about my blood sugars. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I can actually reclaim some of that freedom, that independence.
Have you been able to access the drug regularly?
No, it's been very rough. It was extremely difficult. I have to ring out 15, 20 different pharmacists. Even today, I have to do 3 or 4. Sometimes I have to drive a large distance just to get a pen that isn't my exact dosage. And I support people, accessing it for a chronic or illnesses that are directly threatening them. But bluntly put, this drug was developed as a diabetes drug, first and foremost. And the fact that people who want to lose 5 or 10 kilos can cut first in line and get this drug is bad. It's terrible. Because then people like me don't get it.
How do you feel when you can't access the drug or have enough supply?
Scared. It makes me scared. I've had several times where I've been anywhere from 3 to 6 months off of the medication. It's extremely difficult to maintain my blood sugars. I'm not angry at people. I'm disappointed.
How much does it cost you?
Here I pay somewhere around $30, depending on where I go and whether it's a mom and pop shop or a large chemist.
Emma Jane, how much do you pay for Ozempic?
I'm on the PBS. I just pay $7.70 a month for my script. But again, I'm on very limited income too, and I also have 8 medications that I have to take, so I get it at the concession rate.
Karen, how much does it cost you?
If I can get an actual Ozempic pen, about $140, $150, although that's not really possible at this moment, so it's a Wegovy pen, $460.
And that's not subsidised?
Nope, it doesn't cost the PBS anything.
It's not subsidised for you because you're not diabetic, is that correct?
That's right.
Has the drug been easy for you to obtain?
I got tired of the lectures. I got tired of the judgment and attitude that I was getting at pharmacies. It was just rude. It was humiliating. And I just got sick of it. And it was just easier to use the compounding pharmacy. There was no judgment, there was no questions. I had a script. It was made out for me. It was prescribed for what I feel is a legitimate reason. And they provided me with medication. It's kind of how it should be. And so I just did that for almost a year.
Adam, you're a compounding pharmacist. What is the difference between compounded semaglutide and the brand name Ozempic?
The commercial one, it should be able to be ordered by any pharmacy in Australia, click of a button, get it the next day. It shouldn't even be an issue what we're having right now. We should be able to get so much supply. It's all made overseas, shipped over. Now, when it's compounded, or it's bespoke for the individual, we've got the raw ingredients, it's all made in a sterile environment. It can be made at the exact same strengths, concentrations as Ozempic, so that the dose is the same. So the continued care of medication can continue.
What's it like on the front line trying to dispense these drugs?
It's terrible. It's frustrating. The despair in Gunner's voice is real, and we hear it 20 times a day. These people calling, have you got it in stock? And I'm like, I'm sorry, mate, I don't. We only get about 10 pens a month allocated, and then I'm cut off. And that's my whole community. So I have to put a list, and I'm like, these people are the worst. I call them and say, pick it up now.
So you have a priority?
We have to have a priority list. It's literally an A4 page, and we're like, okay, call them.
So why do you think there is such a shortage? Are the drug companies not sending enough to Australia?
It's quite simple. I spoke to a Texan doctor only this week. I'm not sure if you guys are aware. In Texas, it is all those drugs are between $1,200 to $1,300 US. So it's pretty simple why it's getting shipped over there. It just comes down to dollars.
Tanya, you're an endocrinologist. Who are these drugs designed for?
It's good for people with diabetes because not only does it lower the glucose levels without resulting in abnormally low levels, as medications like insulin and sulfonylurea tablets can do. But it also tackles weight, which is often a problem in people with type 2 diabetes. This class of drugs has been shown to reduce heart disease, to improve kidney function, to have benefits with people with liver problems. Similarly, in people with obesity, the newer agents like semaglutide and tirzepatide have been shown to not only have dramatic effects on weight, but also improve cardiometabolic problems, including if there's pre-diabetes, it'll attack the glucose levels. There are studies now that people with pre-existing cardiovascular disease who take these drugs have reduced cardiovascular adverse outcomes, including less death. And we're getting some evidence that this type of drug might improve neurodegenerative disorders. So it's very exciting. And that's why there's shortages of the drugs, because if you've got something good, people want it. And we're actually very lucky in this country that it costs less than in the US.
How often do you prescribe injectables for obesity?
A lot.
The Therapeutic Goods Administration, the TGA, advised doctors to stop prescribing semaglutide to new weight loss patients and pharmacists to prioritise it for diabetics. Why?
I don't know why that is. I think it was misguided and not correct, because semaglutide's been approved for obesity in Australia for a long time. So I didn't really understand it. And I think it was wrong.
Amanda, you started Mounjaro last December. That's tirzepatide, a different drug from semaglutide but works in a similar way. Has accessing it been difficult for you?
Accessing it has been an absolute nightmare. I got a 2-month supply because I was going overseas to Canada to see my family for Christmas. Once I flew to Canada, my fabulous doctor here called me in Canada and said, "Hey Amanda, just a heads up, we're having a very large problem with accessing Mounjaro in Australia. So if you can get it prescribed to you in Canada while you're there, I highly recommend that." Called my family doctor. I said, "Hey, what do you think?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure. I see that you have an Australian prescription. Happy to prescribe it for you. It's working, no problem." He prescribed it to me. I'm like, "Yay, this drug's made in Canada. Should be able to access it." No. Was fully out across all of Canada, was not available in Canada. I asked my doctor, I said, like my Canadian doctor, I said, "What do I do?" And he goes, "Well, cross the border into the US, find someone who's willing to prescribe it to you. But before you do that, you got to find the pharmacy that has access to it." Wow. So I called around to about 50 pharmacies, found the pharmacy that actually had access to it. And I said, "How do I get it from you?" And he said, "Next to us is a 24-hour emergency kind of clinic. Go to the clinic, pay your $95 US, get them to write you a script, come over here and we'll dispense it to you." And I was like, job done. So I went, did all of that, showed up at the pharmacy, and they were like, "Oh my God, do you know how much this is?" They said, "Do you have, health insurance in the US?" I said, "No, I'm Canadian, Australian. I don't have cover." And they're like, "Oh, well, this is really expensive." I'm like, "That's fine. I'm willing to pay for it." And I'm in a very privileged position that I can.
How much was it?
$1,000 US.
For how much?
4 weeks worth.
So you were willing to pay that much?
Absolutely. It changed my life. Like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking about food. I'd wake up in the morning, have breakfast, and my brain was already like, "So what's for lunch?" Like, I wouldn't stop eating. I'd see a plate of food. I didn't have an off switch control. The brain would just talk. One injection in, it was like, switch was flipped.
Zoe, you changed GPs to find one who was happy to prescribe you Ozempic. What was motivating you?
The main impetus for me is that my husband and I have a very precious embryo left. We've been on an IVF journey for over 4 years now, so I wanted to lose a bit of more weight. I have tried Weight Watchers, and I actually did lose 22 kilos on that prior to starting IVF, but the trauma of IVF has also made it difficult at times with weight.
You were on it for 3 months. Why did you stop?
I didn't really want to stop, but it was extremely expensive. We're in Brisbane, and you would think that accessing medication would be relatively easy. It was difficult. And also, I was extremely fatigued. So it meant that I couldn't exercise regularly, which it felt like that was not enabling me to be as healthy anyway, because I was so tired.
Did you find yourself not feeling hungry when you were on the drug?
That's absolutely right. However, it also triggered in me the feeling that I had when I was on Weight Watchers. And actually, it was my nutritionist who pointed out that it was disordered eating. So it was both, I was happy that I wasn't hungry, the noise of food was turned off. However, I was also quite frightened for my mental health.
Really? In what way?
So I was frightened because there's enough trauma with IVF, and then you add in trying desperately to lose the weight, and it affects your emotions. You get obsessed. And so, I was very scared for my mental health, and I knew that as much as I wanted to stay on the drug to help us with IVF, I knew that my overall health was in jeopardy as well.
Gunnar, have you had any side effects?
The medication does come with side effects. I'm not afraid to say that, yes, my stomach has been in knots and maybe not so much in knots at times. So yes, I've definitely had diarrhea, constipation, stomach ache. I've never had vomiting, but I've definitely felt nauseous. It's usually within the first couple days after taking the injection, or it's when I'm titrating up. This medication generally requires you to start at a lower dose and work your way up. So when you're working your way up, as you get into a heavier dose, it can get quite dicey. My doctor has given me some medications for anti-nausea, like ondansetron and stuff like that, in order to combat that. But generally speaking, it clears up within about 2 days.
Amanda, you're taking tirzepatide, brand name Mounjaro. Have you had any side effects?
I've been really fortunate, so I have had no side effects until the day that I didn't take it to the T, and then it was like diarrhea or constipation or feeling a little bit nauseous. But anytime I've taken it, like, I don't drink any alcohol with it whatsoever. I'm 2.5 liters of water a day, 130 grams of protein every day, and I've had no problems with it at all.
Are there any foods or things that you find you can't eat anymore?
That's the weirdest thing. So now if I did want to eat like chicken nuggets, I try to have one of those, and it just like afterwards my body is like, why did you do that? Like, it's like, thanks for trying to provide me food, but not that one. Thanks, but no thanks.
Terry Lynn, you're a GP and a dietitian. How common are side effects from these injectable weight loss drugs?
The side effects are common, but as you can see from the audience's answers here, there's a huge variability in whether someone's going to suffer the side effects, what those side effects are, and the severity. But in general, side effects such as nausea, side effects such as changes in bowels are common, usually mild, and usually not long-term. But we have individuals with rather, extreme ends of average as well.
Should patients have to put up with these side effects?
I don't think they should have to put up with side effects. I think side effects, certainly in my experience, can be well managed. And we're managing them by looking at dose, but also by changing what people are eating and drinking and being proactive about bowel management. It's, I think, manageable. Occasionally I've had patients where we haven't been able to manage a side effect and we've had to stop the medication. So that, in my experience, would be more rare than having the appropriate, slow, holistic advice about not just the medication, but how to eat well to manage side effects.
Are there concerns around getting enough nutrition while taking these drugs?
For people who are very strong responders, yes, absolutely. So if people are having a complete switch off of their appetite, how are they going to meet their nutrition needs? Fibre intake and probiotics and the multivitamins and minerals from fruit and vegetables. So if you have a significant reduction in your appetite and therefore your oral intake, it's going to be hard to meet your nutrition needs, yes.
Dibs, do you still enjoy food?
Not really, not like I used to. I used to love eating my chicken nuggets, but now I'm more worried about when I eat, is acid reflux going to happen, or am I going to wait next week without going to the toilet, or, I worry more about that now.
Amanda, how about you? Do you still enjoy food, a glass of wine?
I love food, but I do not have any wine at all. I have no alcohol. So as soon as I made the decision to take Mounjaro, I stopped all alcohol use. So my husband and I recently had a wedding anniversary, and we are specifically going out for steak. And I was like, oh, red wine and steak. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not even craving red wine. Okay. sparkling water with a wedge of lime, here we go, and that's my go-to now, and I love it.
Does that change your dynamic socially?
Not at all. I haven't allowed it to change my dynamic. I have a great group of friends who we all go out drinking together, and they're like, oh, don't worry, Amanda, we'll have a liter of sparkling for you. And I'm like, yep. And they've all adjusted and have drinks available to me that I can drink.
Terry Lynn, what do you weigh up as a doctor before you prescribe injectable weight loss drugs?
I really need to understand that person in front of me. Why are they seeking weight control? What are their priorities? What is their lifestyle like? I do assess for contraindications, so reasons that they may not be able to have a medication. I also assess for risk factors that might be associated with taking the medication. And basically, I like to explain the science behind weight control so the patient in front of me is understanding why there are a number of things that can be contributing to their personal story of difficulties at a higher weight. And then we talk about all of our options, of which the medication is just one part, and then also their expectations for the future as well.
Sarah, you're using semaglutide for reasons other than weight loss. What's been your motivation?
I developed a gastrointestinal infection during COVID that had an incredibly debilitating effect on me, very similar to Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. And despite 3 years of specialists and gastroenterologists and travelling interstate, had a lot of trouble determining the outcome after the infection had healed as to what we were going to do about my symptomatic treatment. Incredible gastrointestinal distress that stopped my capacity to work in a job that I adored and was a valuable job. And more recently, after changing to a small country town and a regional GP and talking to my endocrinologist, he flagged that semaglutide, whilst I was on the border of the markers for diabetes and pre-diabetes, so that was something that we could discuss anyway, would slow my digestive tract, and it's changed my life.
What effect did semaglutide have for you?
It has absolutely reduced the gastrointestinal distress. It has reduced my blood pressure. It has reduced my liver results. I've got my energy back. I had spent months in bed having the appearance of someone who was chronically depressed. My husband and my stepchildren didn't really understand what were going on and were incredibly patient with it. But when I've got multiple specialists saying we can treat the symptoms but we don't understand what the causes are, was really, really challenging. And my sense of optimism was miserable because I thought, is this going to be my life now? I'm now a completely different person. My general demeanour, my energy, my confidence and my attitude towards my capacity in the future to potentially being able to go back and train and go back to work is completely different.
When your doctor first suggested semaglutide, how did you feel about that?
I was really anti. I feel we live in a society where a friend of mine very wisely said, we don't cure racism by telling people to be more white. We don't fix fat phobia by telling everyone you must be more thin. Some people need to be comfortable in their bodies if they're not that overweight. And I did have friends start to push me when the weight was coming off as a fringe benefit. But I felt very uncomfortable that some people that weren't particularly overweight were saying to me, oh, you've lost a lot of weight in the face, are you on Ozempic? And I was lying and saying, oh, I take an insulin medication for my insulin resistance, and that's really helped. Because I then did find that some of those friends were going to GPs because they had 5 or 10 kilos they wanted to lose for aesthetic reasons. And this is a hectic drug. It is not trivial for some people. I found the trivialising of it as, for some people saying, oh, well, that's going to be my quick solution, bothered me that I was contributing to that.
How have those around you reacted to your new size?
I've been very lucky that I have the kind of calibre of friend who says, you've lost weight, you look really healthy, because I was sick and it's a more holistic thing that's going on with me than you have just lost weight, aesthetically you look better. I'm healthier, I'm happier. But this is my coming out story. It's only been in the last 2 weeks and I've been on this drug for nearly a year that I'm finally feeling comfortable where it's okay to say that that's what I'm taking and that it is part of my treatment.
You live in Tasmania. Do you find it hard to access semaglutide?
I've been quite lucky that I moved to a regional town and have a very supportive pharmacist. But when I was in Hobart, especially with the initial script that was private before we got my results and I was on PBS, Absolutely same story as everybody else here. Stigmatised, shopping around chemists, being treated like I was being vain and depriving other people of medication, having to use compound, going through that drama, the expense of getting it freighted to Tasmania, having to learn how to self-inject. Yeah, it was not fun. And during shortages, having to use compound as well.
When you do use compound, how much does that cost you?
Instead of being $7.70 on my pension, it's anywhere from $160 to $220
for a month's supply.
For a month's supply.
From the 1st of October, the federal government will ban compounding chemists from making and selling semaglutide. Adam, what do you think about that?
It's a silly knee-jerk reaction by politicians who haven't spoke to patients, nurses, doctors or pharmacists about the impact. It's all come about of one ex-pharmacist who had heavily restricted by the Pharmacy Council not to own a pharmacy, not to compound. He was banned from compounding and he made it in his house. So now my entire industry has been struck off by this one bad pharmacist who should never have been in a position to make compounded in his kitchen and exploited this vulnerable population.
Tanya, you're an endocrinologist. Why is the government banning compounded semaglutide?
Look, this is not an area of my expertise. My understanding is there's a couple of issues. First of all, any compound that we have here has to go through a rigorous process of being proven to be effective. It has to go through drug trials to show that it is biosimilar. Insulins, for example, go through rigorous testing to make sure that they really are as good as the original product. Also, I know it costs billions of dollars to develop a new drug and certain drugs are under patency. I don't know if that's part of the rules. One has to be confident that a product one prescribes is safe and effective, and these products that are produced by pharmacists have not been rigorously tested.
Sarah, how will that compounding ban affect you?
It will depend on whether there's going to be shortages, which I imagine that there will be, because everyone that has been relying, and there's thousands of people who have relied on compound, will then have to move their prescriptions over and try with chemists. There's also a push to move people to Wegovy because Wegovy is more expensive than Ozempic if there's a shortage.
If you do have to go on to Wegovy, for example, quite a lot.
I cannot afford it on a DSP.
You can't afford it?
Absolutely not. It's over.
How does that feel for you?
Absolutely heartbreaking because I'm just on the precipice. Like I said, I'm getting my life back. I really feel like everything has changed. It's repaired a whole lot of tension in my personal, professional and my marriage life that, you know, my husband's wonderfully supportive, but I feel awful for him. He's had a very, very sick wife for the last 3 years. And the idea of going back to that and not having a job and not being valuable, I will contribute to society with taxes if I'm on this medication. So it's kind of counterintuitive as well.
Matt, you run telehealth weight loss clinics and previously distributed compounded semaglutide to your patients. What do you prescribe now?
Yeah, we've got a number of medications available for our practitioners to prescribe. The main one at the moment is Wegovy. We do have diabetic patients who were, for a number of years been utilising our services. We've gone through what's been a really turbulent number of years through COVID and even now with access to these medications. Saxenda was around for weight loss purposes originally. That eventually went out of stock, and then we obviously saw a lot of off-label use of Ozempic as well. And then more recently, nothing being available really for quite a long time until about a month ago with the introduction of Wegovy into Australia. And I understand the frustration now that those who were using semaglutide off-label for obesity purposes now have an on-label branded version of the exact same drug molecule. And for diabetics, they don't now have access because Ozempic is still officially in shortage with no clear sort of end to that in sight.
Do you think there's going to be an end to the shortage for diabetics and those who want to use it for weight loss?
There's promising signs. The fact that Wegovy is now available here, we're hearing Mounjaro is perhaps not too far away as well within the Australian market. We've certainly seen in other countries, particularly where we operate, such as the United Kingdom, these medications are freely available. They don't have any stock issues whatsoever. It is improving. Hopefully that includes Ozempic, but it's unclear exactly when that will be.
Do you mind me asking how much you charge your weight loss patients for semaglutide?
So it depends what medication they're getting and then the program as well. So we don't just offer prescriptions for the medication. It is a holistic program. So patients are getting access to dietitians, health coaching and their practitioners and medical support as well. So it's more than just the medication cost, but it ranges depending on what the dose is. And that with Wegovy, it does escalate as the dose gets higher. So when you get into those higher dose ranges, can be up to about $600 a month.
Violet, you live in a regional area and you used Matt's telehealth service to access semaglutide. What was your motivation?
I hit menopause, got the jackpot, but also I have all the genetic markers for developing all the cardiometabolic diseases. My mother had type 2 diabetes. She lost a leg and it was the most horrendous process that I've ever, you wouldn't wish it upon your worst enemy. And I knew with all the background and my genetics, I'd had a sedentary job, I'd been under a lot of stress. Diet wasn't cutting it. And I knew what I was doing with diet, but it wasn't cutting it anymore. So I did a lot of research. I read all the SELECT trials. I looked into how this drug was approved, and I did a risk versus benefit assessment on it, and I decided that if it was something that could help me lose that 5 to 7% of body fat that we know will help reverse insulin resistance, it could get me over that hump, then I could do the rest with diet and lifestyle.
You're a naturopath. Were you conflicted about taking a drug for weight loss?
Absolutely. I was waiting to get crucified by my colleagues. I was torn, but I have a very big picture, and for me, Ozempic was one piece in the puzzle.
You've lost 14 kilos in the last 5 months or so. Are you still taking it?
No, I've stopped now. I'm booked into the gym this weekend, so I'm actually starting gym, which I've not done for about 25 years because I'd rather read a book.
Just go on the treadmill, read a book at the gym.
That's it. So definitely I've been walking more, been a lot more active, and I've adopted more of a ketogenic style diet as well.
For years and years and years, all I could do was look at my face and my hair, and then it was like, my body, got the apron belly, and my legs aren't too bad, and I just have to accept who I am. Oh, it's a nice looking crowd, isn't it? I'm Shauna Jensen. My job as a singer is to be a storyteller. No one to make my bed. If I'm singing a song that's sultry and sexy, I'm just being me, and I don't think, I can't do that because it might look terrible, because it's irrelevant what people think about me. Let me take you to the corner. My job is to tell a story and entertain people, and if people don't like the way I look, then that's okay. I've been overweight my whole life. So it's a long time. Oh, thank you so much. A couple of years ago, I remember being at a blues festival, and I was lamenting to one of the musicians there about how I wasn't getting hired as much as I used to. And he said to me, well, you're old and you're overweight and nobody wants to see that. And I clutched my pearls in disgust, and I couldn't believe that he actually said that, but of course I totally believed it because that's the reality. The sun goes behind a cloud. I went to see my doctor and I said, I can't do another diet, but I don't want to be this overweight. And she said to me, there's this drug called Ozempic, would you be interested? Here's the information, go away and think about it. I decided to do it, and it was quite successful, and I lost about 22 kilos. And I was happy that I'd had the weight loss, but I was experiencing the side effects, and I had to really stop and think to myself whether I wanted to be a slave to that. And I decided that I didn't. Just a teeny weeny bit, a eeny weeny bit of your love, yes.
Shauna, you've tried Ozempic 3 times. Will there be a 4th?
Absolutely not. It was the cost, really, of the drug that was kind of like the nail in the coffin for me, and plus the feeling of being sick. I just didn't want to have that. I don't eat fast food. I hardly drink any alcohol anymore. And I go to Pilates every week and I walk 20,000 steps a day. I'm quite healthy, but I'm just a fat lady. I'm a good person and my body does not define who I am. My deeds and my kindness and my love of people and my family, and that's who I am. The body is not who I am, it's just a part of who I am. It doesn't define me anymore, but it did define me for a long time.
Terry Lynn, is eat less, exercise more still an approach to managing obesity?
I think it's a lot more complicated than that. That's a little too simplified and binary. We need to understand there's a difference between weight loss and health gains, and we need to understand that yes, people living in a larger body can be healthier without necessarily weight loss, but then there is weight loss that can help people with individual health concerns. Ultimately, the weight loss is about consuming less calories in compared to how much calories people are burning. But again, that's too simplified as well, because bodies are different, and how one body will treat the energy in and energy out is very different from somebody else. And ultimately that difference is genetics.
Once started, how long do patients with obesity have to stay on injectable medications?
That question is yet to be fully answered, because we've got 2 research studies that suggest that if people were to go off their injectable medication, they get significant weight regain quite quickly, up to 2/3 of what they have lost within 12 months. We also have some, again, drug-sponsored research that says if people stay on their medication, then they can keep that percentage weight loss maintained for up to 3 years. But that's really where we're at the moment, and we're now looking at real-world research and real-world experience to see is there something in the middle, and I don't think we've got quite enough data and research to be able to explain or be able to answer that fully. And this is where I think it's really important for patients thinking about these medications to go into decision making, pros and cons, eyes wide open with regards to whether it's long-term use, cost, availability, side effects, etc.
Matt, do you see potential economic benefits to the use of these drugs?
Yeah, I mean, obesity is a major risk factor for a number of other chronic diseases. So the impacts on the healthcare system alone would be astronomical. And then I think, you know, even the lifestyle aspects, the mental health impacts, patients feeling better, being able to enjoy their lives, live a long, healthy life, not just a long life, but enjoy that health throughout that lifespan.
Amanda, how long do you think you'll take your medication?
I'll take it as long as I need to. So at this point, I'm at the lowest dose that I can be on, and I'm gonna maintain this for a few more months, closely guarded by my doctor, which is great. And then the plan is to come off of it, and then if I can still maintain my weight the way it is, then great. And if not, I'll go straight back onto that lowest dose.
Dibs, are weight loss injectables a long-term prospect for you?
Yeah, they will be. I do want to get to 80 kilos, so I've got a long way to go. My doctor told me that's the healthy weight that I should be at. Once I get there, I'll just do a maintenance from there on.
Zoe, you're not taking weight loss medication anymore. You're about to transfer your final embryo. How are you feeling about your health?
I'm feeling philosophical. I'm feeling like I've done my very best, and I'm trying to be more compassionate on myself, being really as kind to myself as I am to others. So that's where I'm at.
Karen, do you see yourself taking semaglutide long term?
Yes. I have epilepsy, and no one has ever said to me, well, you don't have seizures anymore, perhaps you should stop. I mean, I don't take the doses that I used to take. It's spaced out a little bit more, the dose is lower, it's a maintenance dose, I eat more than I used to eat. You know, I do have a little bit more hunger now, but I'm better able to cope with it. It's something that I need to regulate and manage my metabolism. I don't know what it is that needs to be helped, but it helps. And its benefits, I think, to enjoy them in a long-term way, I think I have to take it for as long as I need to.
I heard you cleaned out your handbag recently. What did you find in there that made you reflect on how you feel about food?
5 chocolate bars.
So you found them in your handbag. When you saw them, what did you think?
Shit. There'd be a time where they'd be lucky to make it into my handbag, let alone languish there for weeks on end. You know, the poor old twirl was pretty much worst for wear. It started years ago with getting your Coles thing to $30 so you could get a point. And so just chuck in a impulse thing, and then of course, well, I've got it, may as well eat it because that was me. And, you know, there is still some thoughts around it, but it's very structured thoughts, and it's thoughts that help me to feel healthy and to keep going, and it doesn't run my life.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you all for being here. That's all we have time for. You can catch up on this episode or any others on SBS On Demand, and I'll see you next time.